Hello everyone, Sully the Scourge here, making good on my promise to cover the new Healing Warlock. Now it's called Soulweaver because it has a heavy reliance on Soul Sparks, no longer called Temptation here. I'm going to say again, this is the initial steps in preview. It's been out less than a week. A lot of things are going to change, a lot of things are bugged, so again, I'm not going to fall too in love with any one particular thing and how it's working. I'm going to cover mostly the general concepts, what they're trying to do and accomplish here with this new Healing Warlock. So if you want to, say subscribe to the channel. You know, I'll cover any changes that happen across preview as it continues to be altered here. But to start with, we have something familiar, Soul Defiler. So again, a new name, but you heal yourself for 1% of the damage you deal and heal your allies for half this amount. So basically, the capstone of the temptation tree is somewhat still alive, although severely toned down, right? You deal a hit for 100,000 damage, you heal yourself for 1,000 damage, and you heal your allies for half that amount, so you heal your allies for only 500. So again, this is incentivizing you to build DPS a bit on your Healing Warlock. Here we have some of the similar things for the DPS build. I might not cover some of the overlapping things because I know a lot of you guys watched the DPS build, or at least the DPS version of the Warlock and what it had available. But here you have, when you take damage, you have a small chance, 5%, to apply a lesser curse to attacker. You have, again, two things showing 10% critical severity. Obviously, one of these is probably going to be changed to something else. And then my human feat. So mechanics, instead of your Warlock's curse, you have Essence Drain. Drain the very essence of your enemy's souls, dealing damage to them and restoring your health and soul sparks. Again, there's going to be an importance on having soul sparks with this Healing Warlock. On the DPS version, if you watch that, this is Soul Scourge. Here we have this Essence Drain mechanic on the Healing Warlock. Sorry, my throat's still bad. I've been sick this whole week, but I wanted to get this stuff out to you guys. Soul Spark, again, here it's the same. When you build Soul Sparks, you basically increase your damage dealt. And then when you leave combat, you get a passive heal. Now, they're more important here on the Healing Warlock, because if you start looking at some of these powers, I've got Hero Storm here, cost 3 Soul Sparks to cast. So Soul Sparks are a resource used to cast your unique healing kind of abilities over here. Not all of these are healing abilities, but most of the actual encounter powers that are unique to the Healing Warlock do cast Soul Sparks to cost. The other side of that is there's no cooldown, you might notice. So again, you're not necessarily limited by time. You're instead limited by how many Soul Sparks you have. So I'm going to start at the unique ones. Here we have Pillar of Power. You may notice does not deal any damage. So no damage on Pillar of Power, which means it won't apply Lesser Curse to any enemies. But it is still a damage buff. So while inside the conduit, and for 3 seconds after leaving, your damage and healing are increased by 10%. Allies who stand in the conduit gain 5% increased damage. You might think this is a lower amount, but with all the reworks going on to all the classes, a lot of party buffs are being taken out. Here we have a party buff, but it's still somewhat reduced. Again, and it's reduced in the fact, not only in the percentages, but in the fact that it doesn't deal damage. It won't put lesser curses on for those types of curse consume things, but still probably worthwhile. Just because party buffs are now very rare in the game. The other interesting thing to note is because it no longer deals damage, it no longer debuffs enemies either. It's just a damage buff and healing buff. This can basically be used at ranged, right? Obviously the tank would miss it, but if you have a whole party of people hanging back at ranged, you know, you can use this effectively at range now. Here we have Placeholder. Shatter Spark, new ability. Again, no cooldowns on these things, costs 5 Soul Sparks to cast. Share a large cluster of Soul Sparks, releasing their energy into yourself and allies, and a big heal magnitude here. We also have Ray Shadow. You summon a shadow to smother your enemy in a massive darkness. applying a DOT that siphons life to nearby allies. Mediocre magnitude and healing magnitude, single target, very low soul spark cost, only 2. Here we have what is a pretty decent encounter power. Calling up a churning storm of Eldritch power at target location. For the next 6 seconds, the storm will deal damage to enemies and heal allies who stand in it. Heal magnitude 200, normal magnitude 200. So this is pretty good. You're going to be able to use it great in AoE situations. You're going to be able to basically heal your tank, who should be right next to the monsters, while also dealing damage to the monsters. This is going to put lesser curse on your enemies because it does deal damage, and it's not one of those curse consume or curse synergy powers. So this is a good opening encounter to use. So the only downside, it looks like, is on a boss that teleports. It can shift around. You might have to keep replacing it in a new position. But again, there's no cooldown on these types of things. There's only soul spark costs. And then we have Warlock's Bargain. Now, this is one that you'll have to level up to get. Again, I'm keeping my character at base level 70 for maybe a couple more days till I finish making videos. But here we see you sacrifice basically your own hit points to heal allies. Heal magnitude 200, outgoing healing increased by 10%, duration 5 seconds, removes 1 negative status effect from each target. So basically, you're the so you're the target because this doesn't deal damage anymore. And when it says remove 1 negative status effect, what I take it to mean is it's basically cleanse. Maybe not as good as cleanse, but I take it they want this to remove negative status effects from allies because it says each target. So this is interesting. I'll be probably using this. Right now I've got, Vampiric Embrace slotted in just because it's a big self-heal, and there's ways to convert self-heals into party heals on this new Warlock. But all the rest of this stuff, all the rest of the encounters I covered in the DPS build, and they're more DPS focused abilities. So, I'm thinking Pillar Power, obvious party buff, good heal, good AoE damage, puts lesser curse on. Maybe you want 1 more heal, maybe you want a mix of a healing damage spell. Even something like Killing Flames might be fine, a high damage, because again, your damage is converted into a small heal with Soul Defiler down here. So I'm going to go up to your at-wills now. We have a new one. This one's going to be good. Obviously, you have 2 at-wills. This is worth using because it's basically a panic heal. Reconstruct the soul of an ally by continually channeling soul sparks into them, healing them and yourself. So it's basically a single target panic heal for probably your tank and yourself, right? You can use it on, a DPS that takes a heavy hit, but usually DPS are flying around. While a tank's stationary. So here's your basically panic heal that you can use anytime because it's an at-will. Then, if you want to go with Essence Defiler just to try and create some more soul sparks, that's fine. The other 2 are kind of a little bit more damage focused, like something like Eldritch Blast, if you want to try to deal a little bit of AoE damage. It's probably not necessary. The way this Warlock's set up is you want to generate soul sparks, and that unlocks your encounter powers basically because they don't have cooldowns. They just have soul spark costs. Alright, we're going to go into class features. Again, I'm not going to cover most of these because I already did in the DPS video. I'm going to cover the ones that are unique to the healer, and because those are probably the ones you want to be using anyways. Here we have Dust to Dust. Your damage dealt is increased by 5%. Obviously, that is good. Again, dealing more damage can equal more healing. Borrowed time. Each soul spark used on a power will heal you for 1% of your maximum hit points. You shouldn't have problems healing yourself. You're going to probably want to mostly focus on healing your allies, so probably not using this. Warding Curse. Lesser Curse now lowers effective target's damage dealt by 5%. I have this slotted in. If you've played the Healing Warlock before in the past, you may know one very important thing about the Healing Warlock. you can basically heal away any damage, you know, but you can't prevent your teammates from getting one shot. That was always the biggest downside of the Healing Warlock, while other classes had stuff like AA to protect, you know, characters up front, protect from those one shots. You know, your teammates basically had to be able to survive the hit before you could heal them. This is, again, something that will let your teammates basically survive an initial hit and buy you time to be able to get a heal off. So I've got this slotted on. Then Essence Drain. Essence Drain deals 5% more damage and healing. If you don't remember what Essence Drain is, it's up here. It's your tab. It's your right bumper. If you're a console player, drain the very essence of your enemy's souls, dealing damage to them and restoring your health and soul sparks. Now, I probably don't want to do this because, again, it's just a tab mechanic. I'm probably working more on the rest of my rotation than being stuck in the tab mechanic. Now, that's also important when you go in here to pick your first feat, because we have stuff that revolves around Essence Drain again. Essence Drain now has a 15-second cooldown, unaffected by cooldown reduction, but grants 15 soul sparks immediately and does heavy damage. So basically you turn your tab, you turn your right bumper into an encounter power with a 15-second cooldown. I'm okay with that because, again, we have other things we want to do in our rotation, so putting it on cooldown, not the biggest deal. To me personally, you're getting 15 soul sparks out of the deal. That's almost a 4% DPS increase, and then you can use these soul sparks to lower your DPS increase, but to cast the rest of your encounters. So that's fine. The other alternative is to make Essence Drain grow in strength as you channel it. After 2 seconds of channeling it, you start to gain 2 soul sparks per tick. Again, I don't just want to be sitting there channeling one single thing. I want to be going through my entire rotation, so I don't think this is the pick for me. This next one is very interesting. Both of these two are going to be very good, in my opinion. Dark Revelry increases awareness and critical avoidance, so 2 separate defensive stats, of your teammates within 50 feet by 2,500. So basically, each teammate is getting 5,000 defensive worth of stats from this ability. That's actually a lot. You know, again, if you're running with groups that are capped out, that might already have these things built into their characters, you know, at the maximum values, then of course they're not gaining benefits from this. So it might come down to how good your party is, what builds they're running, those sort of things. But that's a decent chunk of defensive stats. The other one that I've put in right now is your powers that directly heal you now also heal all your allies around you for 15% of that heal. So I have this in simply for testing reasons. I want to see how high the Warlock actually heals, and then if the healing is adequate, I can afford to take something like this off and move it into, you know, Dark Revelry, into different stats. But in terms of actually testing this stuff, I'm trying to go full heal to either see, okay, does the Warlock need to heal more, or can I afford to heal less and pick some other things? Does it have to be full heal? So I've got it picked right now, but it might and probably will be the case that you want to choose Dark Revelry here. The other one I have, or I guess the next one I have, is Lingering Sustain. Each time your powers heal an ally or yourself, they are granted Lingering Sustain. Lingering Sustain heals for 200 magnitude over 6 seconds. So this is basically a healing version of Creeping Death, right? Like, you hit an enemy, you put DOT Creeping Death on it. Now you have Lingering Sustain. You heal an ally, you put Lingering Sustain on, it has a heal over time. This is fine. You know, it basically allows you to not have to watch everyone's health as closely. You know, it's a kind of filler, but again, with healing toned down in other areas and your main duty to be a healer, this is probably pretty good. Then we have Life Bind. You create a bond of life with allies within 50 feet, causing 25% of the damage they take to be redirected to you. This effect no longer functions if your health drops below 30%. Your defense is increased by 2,500. So this is very similar to Knight's Valor, a power that Guardian fighters have had in the past. I will say I'm not that interested in this. It kind of encourages people to play sloppy, you know, because they know the Warlock will tank for them. again, there's this weird tension because you want to build damage to increase your heals down here with Soul Defiler, but this encourages you to want to build tanky stats to be able to basically be an off tank to absorb damage for allies. So you, in my opinion, you can't do both, right? You can't build both offensive and build tank at the same time. Also, 2,500 damage as your kind of reward for taking everybody's damage. That's very small. It's not enough, in my opinion, to make me choose this and to want to do this, because again, something like Dark Revelry is giving 5,000 points worth of defensive stats to every character, and my reward for and what I get here in Lifebind to basically help tank everybody's damage is only 2,500 defense. So it's just not enough. Again, I would rather run a group under the assumption that everybody in the group can tank at least a hit, and then I'll heal them from there, right? I don't think I need to be taking a hit, don't need to be spending scrolls for other people's mistakes, those sorts of things. Thief of Life. Self-healing from Soul Defiler is now twice as effective. So, again, if you're not familiar with all these new names, I know they're confusing. I know a lot of the names are very similar. Soul Defiler is when you deal damage, you heal yourself and you heal allies. We're already healing ourselves for double the amount we're dealing allies. So if we go up here and double this amount again, it basically means we would heal ourselves off that ability for 4 times the amount that allies are being healing. To me, that's overheal. You probably don't need that. There's enough sources of healing, as we've covered, in other spots, on other places in your character build, that you probably don't need that. We also have From the Brink. As your life diminishes, you gain 10% increased incoming healing. Now this is basically again a copied version of a DPS feat, Executioner's Gift. Executioner's Gift in the DPS tree, when you deal damage, as the enemy's health decreases, you deal more damage. Here we have, as your health decreases, you heal more. You have more incoming healing. And then we have the one I'll be picking. This is your level 80 reward. Spark Energy. Powers that consume soul sparks generate 10% more action points. Again, we're going to be running what looks like Hero Storm, probably Warlock's Bargain, so probably at least 2 encounters that do it. Again, even if you only have 1 encounter that consume it, because there's no cooldowns, there's just casting time and casting costs in the form of soul sparks. Even if you only have 1, you can use that 1 encounter multiple times very quickly. So this is probably good. It's AP generation. The alternative is just terrible. I don't get this. This is your other possible level 80 reward. Consuming a lesser curse grants yourself and nearby allies 0.5% of their action points immediately. So, as you know, putting a lesser curse on and consuming it is basically a combo. It requires you to set up your character a certain way because you have to only certain things, like I covered earlier. Pillar of Power won't put the lesser curse on, so you have to run a different power encounter just to put it on, and then a different power just to consume it. And this is what they want the reward for, right? So again, it's 0.5%. That means I have to basically execute that combo 200 times in a dungeon to grant a daily to every character, right? Because 2 times is 1%. So 200 times I have to execute that combo in a dungeon to basically grant a free daily. And the joke is they might have full AP anyways. They might just be sitting with their daily up, and it might not actually be adding anything. So this just really isn't worthwhile. Again, it feels really bad that it's basically put at the end of the tree. I know there's no longer capstones, but I can't see this being very useful. Maybe I'm wrong on it. Maybe they change it again. Like I said, stay tuned to the channel. Subscribe if you want to see further updates on how they work with things, how they change things. This is an initial look. I hope you found this helpful. I hope I was able to kind of put this in real terms that people can understand, and let people at least see the things so they can start theory crafting and kind of making their own builds and what they think might be exciting, what they don't like themselves. So again, thank you very much for watching.